In a desperate attempt to keep his job as co-CEO of DC Studios, James Gunn has officially announced a sequel to Superman, that being Man of Tomorrow. And yes, that's right folks, if that title sounds familiar, it's because he stole it from past iteration of the DC Universe, that being the Snyderverse, as well as the DCEU. But yeah, Man of Tomorrow was going to be the sequel with Henry Cavill, and Brainiac, I believe, was going to be the villain for that movie. But no, it looks like James Gunn is going to carry on a lot of those ideas because, again, he doesn't have ideas of his own. He has to just take from what other creators have done, and like he's also just taking certain inspiration from Twitter. We'll just put it that way, and I'll give you an example of that right here. And so, in a desperate attempt to keep his job as co-CEO, he's got to announce his next Superman sequel, which is slated to release as of July 9th, 2027, and it is officially set to come out before The Batman Part 2. What a time we live in, folks. What a time to be a DC fan. And I'm sure a lot of you who are smart actually have a lot of questions as to why this movie was announced just as of now, or why is this movie coming out before The Batman Part 2 when this movie is set to be going into filming or production as of June 2026. So basically a month after the Supergirl releases, because Supergirl, I believe, moved its release date into May. So you're probably wondering, okay, why is this movie going into production a lot later than The Batman Part 2? Because The Batman Part 2 is supposed to come out, or no, it's not supposed to come out. It's supposed to go into production as of April 2026. That's what the reports are saying. And so we have that movie going into production before Superman or Man of Tomorrow goes into production. But Man of Tomorrow is going to come out before The Batman Part 2. And a lot of you have those questions, and I have a lot of those questions too. And we're going to go ahead and cover that in this video. But before I do all that, I'm going to ask you guys to do your due diligence, like and subscribe to the channel, because you are not going to miss out on this certified banger content. And I also want to throw in there, I want to thank you guys for your support on my last video. That did some numbers, and we got a lot of subscribers. So thank you guys for the support on my last video, and we're going to keep going from here. We're just going to keep doing better. We're going to keep getting better with these videos, and I'm going to cover this content like no one else, because that's what I'm here for. And what a lot of the gun-tards say out there is the gun won't jam. Well, in this case, yes, the gun is not jamming anytime soon, or at least if I have anything to say about it. But as of now, James Gunn is going to keep pumping out these fucking news, all this bullshit, just to keep his job, and I'm going to be here to cover it. He's giving me content. I got to thank him for that, alright? We got to give him props. We got to give him some credit. And I also have to give credit to the gun-tards that showed up in my last video, because you guys did not disappoint. Your egos were out of control in my comment section in the last video. You really showed me that kindness is the new punk rock. You really showed me there. And honestly, I wouldn't have it any other way. But all jokes aside, folks, we're going to get into the video. We're going to cover this news, this major news of this Superman sequel, that being Man of Tomorrow, probably another ensemble flick from Gunn and Company, and the many implications of what this announcement entails. So without further ado, let's get right into the video. So something rather interesting about this announcement is the fact that something James Gunn said with his DCU movies, or like if any DCU movie is going to get greenlit, it has to have a completed script, and the script has to be good. Well, neither of those things have to apply to someone like James Gunn, because I don't believe there is a completed script, or if there is, it's just like a rough draft, essentially. And we don't even know if it's good, and I'm gonna guess it's not good based on what we saw with his recent Superman movie. And something more interesting, despite the two things I've mentioned about whether the script is completed and whether it's good, something that's interesting about this whole thing, about this whole announcement, is the announcement itself. Why did he announce it just as of recently? Like, why do we now know the title and when this movie is going to production and when it's going to release? Why do we know these things? Well, I think a lot of it has to do with the fact that something I mentioned in my last video was the fact that James Gunn's contract with DC Studios as the co-CEO actually expires next year. So I think this is a desperate attempt to basically secure his position as the co-CEO, or, you know, basically signal to shareholders that, yes, he's going to continue this Superman shit. He's going to try to keep making more of these movies. It's a way to save face, and they kind of did something like this with the Wonder Woman sequel that we were supposed to get from post Wonder Woman 84, because, you know, that movie was a massive hit, right? Yeah, right. But no, despite that, do y'all remember the Wonder Woman sequel that was announced, Wonder Woman 3? And James Gunn said we were going to get it, and Gal Gadot was set to return as Wonder Woman. Yeah, what the fuck happened with that? Nothing. Absolutely nothing. It was a scam. It was a farce. Everything about that was just faulty from the beginning. That's what it was. And I feel like the same thing is going to happen with this Man of Tomorrow movie, assuming that it gets made. But there's always a chance that it's probably not going to get made, depending on the box office success of Supergirl and even Clayface, those DCU properties. Because if those movies don't do too well, or it doesn't meet the expectations of the shareholders, we could probably say goodbye to James Gunn's DCU, or at the very least, say goodbye to James Gunn himself. Because I don't know if they're actually going to do away with the DCU if, let's say, they boot James Gunn from his position as co-CEO. Because there's always a chance that they could continue the DCU itself. It's just not going to be James Gunn running shit. And if they go that route, you might start seeing better films from DCU. But I wouldn't count on it. They actually just might, put this property, the IP of DC all together, all these characters that you know and love. They're probably going to put these characters on the shelf for a long time. And that could be very bad news for DC in general, because someone like Gunn, who is an irresponsible hack, has tarnished the legacy of these characters. That's why you honestly need someone like Zack Snyder to come back, or somebody just more passionate about the DC properties altogether, to basically come and save face for DC. Get more passionate filmmakers, get better writers for these movies. Make sure we actually have passionate people involved with passionate projects, right? That's what we want. And I think someone like Zack Snyder, I know a lot of y'all love to give him shit for his movies with DC, but he actually cared about the characters. And I've said that time and time again, but it's still true. He cared a lot more about Superman, Batman, and Wonder Woman, more so than James Gunn. And you're probably going to wonder, why that's the case. Why am I being such a bold asshole about that? Well, here's the fact. Here's the fact of the matter. Do you remember when James Gunn said recently that almost every Batman story has been told? Yeah, you remember that? Yeah, I sure as hell do. That, to me, right there, when he said that, he does not give a fuck about these characters. He is lazy to think outside the box, or to even think about how many stories have not been told with Batman. There's so many stories out there with Batman that have not been told. And we probably would have gotten something very unique with Ben Affleck's Batman solo film that was, set to be made. It was going to be directed by Ben Affleck, and it was written by Affleck, and I think Jeff Johns. I think he was one of the co-writers, and I think even Chris Terrio was attached at some point. But despite whoever was attached to that project, we were going to get something very interesting with that movie, with the, Batman versus Deathstroke, and you see that sort of dynamic, why Deathstroke is coming after Batman and his whole livelihood. That would have been such an interesting story. It would have been a breath of fresh air compared to other, iterations of Batman, or things that have been seen on the big screen with Batman. Ben Affleck would have done something incredible with that character, and we would have gotten something completely fresh with the Batman mythos. But nope, we don't get that shit. Everything from that point on, ever since the cancellation of that movie, and the built-up hype for that, it's all led to this just irreversible mess from Gunn himself, to the point where it's these characters, they're being tarnished forever. Their legacies are tarnished. Their image is being tarnished by Gunn, because he just does not give a fuck about these characters. He never has, and he never will. He treats them like a joke. And quite frankly, I am really tired of people defending Gunn's behavior with how he's handling the DC property. I'm getting really sick of it. I'm tired of the excuses. I'm tired of these low IQ comments I get under my YouTube channel, and even stuff I see on Twitter, all these low IQ pundits. They don't know any better. They really don't. All they can, the words they can utter is just peak. Oh, let him cook, guys. Let him cook. We have to, let him tell these stories. We have to, wait till we see the final product. We have to wait and see. It's no, we've waited long enough. We've seen enough. Gunn does not give a fuck, and neither do y'all. That's the truth of the matter. That's the fact of the matter. You guys do not give a fuck about DC or these characters. You never have, and you never will. And what makes matters worse is the fact that you fake fans out there, yes, you are fake fans, you excuse Gunn's behavior, you excuse his mediocrity, and you excuse the fact that he gets his feedback from fucking Twitter, of all places. He literally writes his movies for Twitter. And I saw this tweet the other day of somebody highlighting the fact that Gunn probably took some ideas from a dipshit like High Top Films, with the movie title itself with Man of Tomorrow, and the overall premise of Man of Tomorrow, where Lex Luthor's going to reluctantly team up with Superman to fight against Brainiac, or take on Brainiac, a massive threat to the DC universe. And even if that weren't the case, let's say Gunn did take this idea from someone like High Top Films or some other dipshit on Twitter, You probably would have guessed that Gunn would have taken this approach no matter what, because of the fact that like Gunn only knows how to write ensemble flicks. He doesn't really know how to tell solo stories. He only knows how to write characters where they're just teaming up to save the day. They're all teaming up together because, you know, he's not confident in telling a singular story or having a singular focus. He has to do this like random bullshit go type of storytelling. And I could definitely see with this Man of Tomorrow movie that it's basically going to take the approach of Thor: The Dark World. If you guys remember that movie, Thor has to team up with Loki to take on the big bad. Or even a movie like Aquaman 2, where that same exact thing happens, where Aquaman has to work with Ocean Master to take on the big bad. And it just shows you the lack of originality that we're going to see in the next couple of years. Actually, probably less than a couple of years. But despite that, yeah, we're just gonna get some like Marvelized Superman ensemble flick. You know, the movie that's not a direct sequel to Superman, but it is a direct sequel to Superman. And we're going to bring back every DC character that appeared in Superman. And I believe he's going to bring back some people from the Lanterns TV series. The guy that's playing Jon Stewart. I think that guy teased that he's going to be in this sequel for Superman, Man of Tomorrow. And I even saw that, again, they've doubled down. They've tripled down, in fact, on the fact that Peacemaker Season 2 is going to directly tie into Man of Tomorrow. So yes, you have to know the events of Peacemaker 2, you know, the scene that contains a nasty orgy scene. Yeah, that show. It's going to directly tie into Man of Tomorrow. It's going to directly lead into Man of Tomorrow. And based on what I've heard with this Man of Tomorrow sequel, with all the characters coming back, I feel like this is actually Gunn's final attempt to basically secure his position as co-CEO. He's trying to, you know, basically finalize everything, bring everything to a full circle with this ensemble type of bullshit movie. And especially considering the fact that Peacemaker is probably going to make an appearance in Man of Tomorrow, or even have a supporting role in that movie. It's just, to me, it just highlights that things are going to crumble down very fast if Gunn doesn't kick into gear and like get his shit together, especially with the box office, because I don't really see Supergirl doing that well if, you know, they don't even properly manage their budget, because they're really going to have to manage that budget down to a T, because they cannot slip up like they did with Superman. They cannot do what they did with the marketing budget and just go overboard, and your movie can't even break even. Like, that's like, you guys cannot fuck up again. But I could see this fuck up of a studio, the fuck up that is Warner Brothers, doing the same exact thing like they've done for the past 10 DC movies, you know, post Snyderverse. Overall, I don't see how this is sustainable. And speaking of sustainable, or more specifically, the canonicity of the DCU, or even Gunn's slate, I saw recently that with the recent episode Peacemaker, I think it's episode 3, they bring back Rick Flag Jr. for like a flashback scene, and then they have like a different version of him with this like alternate reality of that character. But they basically highlight that the events from David Ayer's Suicide Squad movie are canon. So Gunn is literally just doing the pick and choose, random bullshit go tactic that I mentioned earlier. That's all he's doing with this whole DCU. Like, everything is just picking and choosing, like, what's canon, what's not. It's not very coherent. And this is what Gunn gets for, you know, not doing a full-on reboot, doing a complete reset. No, he's complicated things because he wants to keep his family members in a job. He wants to keep himself in a job, and he doesn't want to, you know, erase his past work, because that's the kind of person he is. He doesn't make any personal sacrifices. He makes rather selfish decisions for his little DCU. And what complicates things even further is him going against his own slate, his previous slate that was announced when he first announced the DCU lineup, the Gods and Monsters. Half the shit that you see from that slate is not even being made, like the Waller series, Booster Gold. What else is there? Oh, of course, The Authority, but I also mentioned that in my last video. I'm not going to necessarily touch on that again. But we also don't know with what's going to happen with Gunn's Wonder Woman. Who's going to be the Wonder Woman for his DCU? Is there ever going to be a Wonder Woman? Because I don't think they're doing that Paradise, whatever that show is called, the prequel series to Wonder Woman. I don't think they're doing that anymore. And I don't know about the Brave and the Bold movie, the DCU Batman flick without Andy Muschietti, or however you say his fucking name. I don't even know if that guy's still attached anymore. Nobody knows what's going on with DCU Batman. They're probably just going to wait for Robert Pattinson's Batman to come out, and they're probably going to see how successful that is, and if they want to merge the two together, the DCU and the Reeves verse. It's going to be very interesting going forward if Gunn plays his cards right or if he doesn't. Because I can see Gunn slipping up time and time again, or, you know, in the not so distant future. Because if that man keeps running his mouth and he keeps contradicting himself, it's just going to be a complete disaster going forward. But with that being said, I think I'm going to end it right there. I'm now going to leave it to you guys. What do you think about this recent announcement for James Gunn's Man of Tomorrow semi-Superman sequel, or whatever the fuck he's calling it now, because the man can't make up his mind? What do you think of this announcement? Is it a legitimate announcement? Was he doing this out of, you know, good intentions? Or was this a desperate plea for shareholders to take notice of his little Superman saga that he's putting forward and to basically secure his position as co-CEO of DC Studios? And how do you feel about how he's handled this whole DC universe, how he's handled his canonicity within the DCU, or the lack thereof? But I'm really curious as to what you guys have to say for yourselves in the comments below. And if you like what you saw here today or what you heard, go ahead, give this video a like, and go ahead and subscribe to the channel, because you are not going to miss out on that certified banger content. And speaking of certified banger content, make sure you hit the hype button, or whatever the fuck that feature is. I barely know anything about this feature, but I think it's only available on mobile versions of YouTube. So if you know anything about that, make sure to hit the hype button. I think it's where you hit the like button twice, but let's try to get those hype points for this video so that a small channel like this can get boosted within the YouTube algorithm and more people can be exposed to this certified banger content. But if you don't want to do that, that's totally fine. Just go ahead and just drop a like, hit the subscribe button, and just leave a comment below whether you liked or disliked the video. But that's going to do it from yours truly. I hope you guys have an amazing day, and I'll catch you guys in the next one. Bye for now.